You lift a piece of sushi to your mouth without thinking. The rice is cool and soft, the seaweed snaps gently, and then there it is, that familiar seafood sweetness that your brain instantly labels as crab. Comforting. Clean. Familiar. You chew, swallow, and only then does a strange little thought slip in sideways, like a whisper you didn't invite. Wait, what is this actually made of? Not in a suspicious way. Just a quiet curiosity. Because somewhere in the back of your memory is that plastic-wrapped stick from the grocery store, striped red and white, stamped with a name that sounds more like a warning label than a food. Imitation crab. If it's an imitation, what is it imitating? And why has it become so normal that millions of people eat it without ever stopping to ask that question? Once you tug on that thread, it doesn't lead where you expect. It doesn't lead to fraud or shortcuts or secrets meant to be hidden. It leads to history, to survival, to human ingenuity, and to a very specific problem that food has always had. Time. By the end of this, you'll have a 5-second rule that makes imitation crab instantly make sense every time you see it. The word imitation does a lot of psychological damage before the food ever touches your tongue. It sounds like an apology. Like a confession. Like something trying to pass itself off as something better. In your head, it pulls in words like fake, cheap, lesser, even if you've eaten it 100 times and enjoyed it. But that reaction is already a clue. Truly deceptive foods don't announce themselves. They hide behind vague names and fancy fonts. Imitation crab has been standing under fluorescent lights for decades, labeled clearly, served openly, eaten by people who know exactly what it is and by people who never cared to ask. That doesn't happen by accident. It survives in plain sight because it isn't pretending to be crab in the way a counterfeit product pretends to be real. It isn't trying to fool you into thinking a fisherman pulled it from the sea that morning. It's doing something quieter and, in a way, more honest. It's stepping in for crab when crab is expensive, seasonal, inconvenient, or simply not necessary. Once that idea settles, the question changes. You stop asking who's lying and start asking what problem this food was designed to solve. Here's the twist that reframes everything. Imitation crab is not fake crab. It's real fish that has been deliberately reshaped to behave like crab. That sounds like a technicality until you realize how much of eating has nothing to do with flavor alone. Your mouth reads texture before taste. It reads how food pulls apart, how it resists, how it yields, how it breaks into strands. Crab isn't just a flavor. It's a pattern. Soft shreds, gentle bounce, a subtle sweetness that doesn't shout. Imitation crab doesn't copy a crab's biology. It copies the experience of eating crab. And that makes it less like a lie and more like design. An edible illusion built from something real. To understand why anyone would do that, you have to go back long before sushi rolls and supermarket freezes, to a time when seafood had a single, relentless enemy. Spoilage. Imagine a coastal village centuries ago. The catch comes in early, glistening and cold. Some fish are prized, others are bony, pale, or too small to sell well. But every single one of them starts deteriorating the moment it leaves the water. No refrigeration. No long-distance shipping. Just time ticking loudly. In Japan, people developed a method to push back against that clock. Whitefish were cleaned, deboned, minced, washed, salted, and shaped into cakes and sticks that could be cooked and preserved a little longer. This fish paste wasn't invented to imitate luxury. It was invented to prevent waste. To stretch food. To turn humble fish into something reliable and nourishing. That paste became known as surimi, and for hundreds of years it existed as its own thing. A staple. A technique. A quiet act of respect for food that would otherwise be lost. Then the modern world arrived, and with it, a new kind of pressure. Scale. Consistency. The ability to make something taste the same today, tomorrow, and 6 months from now. By the mid-20th century, food science could control texture in ways earlier cooks could only feel their way through. And crab became the perfect target for that precision. Real crab is delicious, but it's expensive to catch, labor-intensive to process, and wildly inconsistent. Its quality depends on season, location, and freshness. And the part you actually eat is locked inside a shell that demands effort and patience. For a world that was moving faster, eating more often, and feeding more people, that friction mattered. So surimi evolved. It was refined until it could be shaped, layered, and flavored to resemble crab meat. In the 1970s, crab-flavored surimi products began appearing commercially in Japan. Not as a trick, but as a solution. They delivered a familiar seafood experience without the cost, waste, and unpredictability of real crab. From there, they traveled quickly. By the 1980s, imitation crab had crossed oceans, showing up in sushi restaurants, salad bars, and grocery stores across the West. And it arrived at exactly the right moment. Sushi was becoming popular, but it still felt intimidating to many people. Raw fish. New textures. New rules. The California roll helped bridge that gap. Cooked, mild, approachable, and starring imitation crab. For many people, that became their first taste of crab. And once something becomes familiar, it stops feeling like a substitute. It becomes the reference point. So what is imitation crab actually made of? Strip away the myths and the answer is straightforward. At its core, it's mild white fish, often pollock. The fish is cleaned and thoroughly deboned, then washed multiple times. That washing step sounds suspicious to some people, but it's functional, not deceptive. It removes fats and pigments, leaving behind proteins that can form a springy, elastic network. Those proteins are what allow the paste to hold together and mimic the bite of crab meat. The result is a smooth, neutral base that can be shaped and flavored intentionally. Starches are added to give body. Proteins, sometimes egg white, help bind everything together. Small amounts of sugar balance flavor and help retain moisture. A bit of vegetable oil improves mouthfeel. Then come the sensory cues. Flavorings, often derived from seafood extracts, provide that gentle crab note. And the red outer layer is simply coloring, painted on because your eyes are part of the eating process. Your brain tastes with expectation before your tongue ever weighs in. That's the straight story. It's not mystery paste. It's not plastic. It's real fish, reorganized. The reason it became normal has less to do with deception and more to do with consistency. Real crab is a special occasion food. It's romantic in a messy way. Cracking shells. Getting your hands dirty. Working for each bite. But it's also expensive, unpredictable, and inconvenient. Imitation crab is the opposite. It's uniform. Ready to use. The same every time. For restaurants, that means stable pricing and predictable portions. For home cooks, it means you can make a seafood salad without turning your kitchen into a battlefield of shells and tools. This is how many modern foods spread. Not because they're better, but because they're dependable. They remove friction. They turn rare experiences into repeatable ones. But taste is personal, and the question always comes back. Does it actually taste like crab? The honest answer is yes and no, and that's by design. If you eat imitation crab on its own, you'll notice what's missing. Real crab has flaky layers and a richness that comes from its natural structure. Imitation crab is softer, more uniform, more gently sweet. It's designed to cooperate, not dominate. That's why it works best inside dishes rather than as the centerpiece. In a sushi roll, it plays alongside rice, avocado, and cucumber instead of competing with them. In a creamy salad, it holds its shape, absorbs dressing, and keeps delivering a seafood signal without overpowering the dish. It does exactly what it was built to do. The disappointment only comes when it's asked to be something it never claimed to be. A lot of confusion around imitation crab is emotional rather than factual. People hear imitation and translate it into unsafe. But this product is regulated and made from edible ingredients. The real distinction is processing. Some people prefer less processed foods, and that's a valid personal choice. Imitation crab is a manufactured food, not a forbidden one. Another misunderstanding is nutritional shorthand. Because it lives in the seafood aisle, people assume it's nutritionally identical to fresh fish or crab. In reality, it varies by brand. It often contains more sodium and carbohydrates due to added starches. And there's one practical consideration that matters more than philosophy. Allergies. Imitation crab contains fish. Many versions include egg, and some use wheat-based starches. Additionally, certain flavorings may involve shellfish extracts. So people with fish or shellfish allergies need to read labels carefully instead of assuming safety. No fear is required here. Just attention. This is where the 5-second rule comes in. It's not about spotting what's fake. It's about matching the food to the moment. If you're standing in the store thinking about cost first, the answer usually arrives before the thought finishes forming. Real crab costs money, time, and effort. It costs boats, seasons, labor, and patience. Imitation crab costs less because it was designed to. It's stable, predictable, and built for everyday meals. If allergies are part of the equation, the choice changes again. For some people, real crab is off the table entirely. For others, imitation crab quietly is too. Labels exist for this reason, not to persuade, but to protect. Your body often decides before your appetite does. Then consider the dish itself. If the food is part of something mixed, shared, or layered, a roll, a salad, a pasta, imitation crab often fits the roll better. It doesn't fight the other ingredients. It holds its place. Real crab, on the other hand, asks for attention. It wants to be noticed. It wants space. That's the rule. In 5 seconds, you're not asking which one is real. You're asking which one makes sense here. Because imitation crab and real crab aren't rivals. They're answers to different questions. So go back to that first bite. The reason it tasted familiar is because familiarity can be engineered. The crab flavor wasn't a lie. It was a target. A texture someone learned to recreate. A sensation someone learned to signal. That doesn't make imitation crab noble or shameful. It makes it human. Every food is a compromise between nature and need, between romance and repetition, between what we want and what we can afford on a regular Tuesday night. Imitation crab is simply an honest example of that compromise, printed right on the package. And once you see it that way, the word imitation stops sounding like an accusation. It starts sounding like a description. So now I'm curious. The first time you realized imitation crab was fish, were you surprised, or did you never really care? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy uncovering the quiet stories hiding inside everyday foods, consider subscribing. There's always another small secret waiting in plain sight.